Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Speak English with Sophie. I'm Sophie, and today, I'm joined by my co-host, Chris.
Hey, Sophie. Hi, everyone. We're excited to dive into today's topic because it's all about something that can really transform your English. We're talking about how to think in English.
Yes, thinking in English can be a game changer because it helps you respond faster, makes conversations smoother, and really deepens your understanding of the language.
Absolutely. When you think in English, you're not translating from your native language, you're directly connecting with English, which means you can express yourself more naturally.
And this process takes time, but there are some fun, practical techniques to speed it up, which we're going to share today.
So, grab a pen and paper if you want to take notes, or just relax and listen along. By the end, you'll have new tools to start thinking in English.
Let's start by talking about why thinking in English is so helpful. Chris, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
For me, it's fluency. When you can think in English, you don't get stuck searching for words. You just know what to say, and your brain is faster because there's no back and forth translation.
Right, and fluency isn't just about speaking quickly, it's about speaking naturally. If you're constantly translating, you lose that natural flow.
Another thing is confidence. Thinking in English can help you feel more confident because you don't have to worry about if you're saying things correctly in real time.
Yes, exactly. And confidence is huge when learning a language. You stop worrying about mistakes and just go with the flow.
And finally, cultural understanding. English isn't just words, it's a mindset. When you start thinking in English, you also start to understand the culture a bit more, and that's a big step in mastering the language.
Definitely. It's like you're immersing yourself in the language without even needing to be in an English-speaking country. So, let's dive into another powerful technique for training our brains to think in English: visual thinking.
Right, visual thinking is like when your brain combines language with imagery, making concepts and vocabulary come to life in a more memorable way. I think it's especially helpful for language learners.
Exactly. It's about linking English words and phrases to vivid images or scenes in your mind rather than translating from your native language. For example, when you think of the word apple, instead of translating, you just imagine the fruit. It's a faster, more direct process.
Yes, and this way, you're not constantly trying to translate or think back to your first language, which is a big step in actually thinking in English. For a lot of learners, that's a game changer.
And what's great is you can start using it with simple objects and actions first. Just look around you. Describe the things you see, like a red book on the table or the coffee is steaming. Imagine it in your head: colors, textures, sounds. You'll quickly build up a collection of these mental images linked to English words.
I like that idea. Another trick with visual thinking is to turn new vocabulary into little visual stories. If you're trying to learn the word journey, for example, you can imagine yourself packing a bag, getting on a train, passing through new places. It's like creating a mini movie in your mind.
Great example. Visual thinking gives words context, too, which helps us remember them longer. And it doesn't have to be perfect or realistic. Even a silly or exaggerated scene is memorable and will help you recall the word faster.
Definitely. It's almost like taking mental snapshots. Another benefit is that visual thinking keeps learning English fun and interesting. Instead of just seeing vocabulary lists, you're engaging your imagination.
And it's more than just images. You can add layers of sound or movement to your visualizations. If you're thinking of the word wind, imagine the sound it makes or the feel of a breeze. This sensory approach helps cement these words in your memory, and soon, you're forming thoughts entirely in English.
Yes. So, next time you're practicing, don't just see the words, try to feel them, hear them, experience them. It's like immersing yourself in English mentally, which is such a boost for thinking in the language.
All right, so let's jump into one of the best techniques for thinking in English: describing your day, moment by moment. In English, this is a simple yet effective way to build that inner English voice.
Yeah, it's like giving yourself a mini practice session throughout the day, just by using English to narrate what's happening around you. And the great thing is, you don't need any fancy materials, just start with whatever you're doing.
Exactly. For example, when you wake up, you might say to yourself, "I'm getting out of bed," or "I need to make breakfast." And you can even add details like I'm drinking a warm cup of coffee, or it's sunny outside, and I can hear the birds.
And as you move through the day, you can add more details or complexity. Start with basics like I'm putting on my shoes and work up to full sentences, like I'm putting on my shoes because I'm going for a walk in the park. Just little narrations like this start to get your mind thinking in English, rather than translating.
Yes, and as you get more comfortable, try adding thoughts and feelings. For example, if you're getting ready for work, you could say, I have a meeting today, and I feel a bit nervous, or, I'm excited to meet a friend for lunch. By describing your emotions, you're also expanding your vocabulary.
I love that tip. Another helpful strategy is to narrate things as if you were explaining them to a friend. Imagine telling someone about what you're doing, like I'm heading to the grocery store to buy some vegetables, or I'm planning to watch a movie tonight. When you imagine that context, it feels like a real conversation, and that's where your English thinking skills really start to come in.
That's so true. And to add to that, you could even go over the next day's plan in English before going to bed. Imagine yourself saying things like, tomorrow, I'm going to the gym, or I'll cook pasta for dinner. It's such a relaxed way to keep practicing.
And if you're feeling confident, you can add some what-if scenarios to keep it interesting. For example, if you're planning to cook, ask yourself, what if I add some new spices? Or what if my friend doesn't like pasta? Imagining alternatives really gets you thinking creatively in English.
And don't worry about perfect grammar at first, focus more on forming sentences and just practicing. The goal here is to make English feel as natural as your native language. So even if you start with simple sentences, it's the habit that counts.
Absolutely, and this habit helps you turn everyday situations into learning moments. Try to make it consistent, and in no time, your mind will automatically switch to English. It's almost like your brain will have its own English mode.
All right. Moving on to our next method, labeling your surroundings in English. This is such a fun and practical way to get used to English vocabulary in real time.
Exactly. Basically, as you go about your day, try to think of the English word for everything around you. And I mean everything: your cup, your desk, your phone, even that pen you've been chewing on. Think of it as walking through your environment with a little mental dictionary.
Yes, and if you're just starting out, keep it simple. For example, look around your kitchen and say, stove, fridge, sink, table, cup. You don't need to make sentences at first. Just focus on putting a name to each item in English.
And to make it even more effective, you could add adjectives or colors to each word. So instead of just table, say brown table or round table. This helps to build a more descriptive vocabulary, which is super useful for more fluent thinking.
Great point. And you can even turn this exercise into a little challenge. If you come across something and realize you don't know the English word, look it up. For example, maybe you see a vase and think, what's the English word for that? You look it up, see its vase, and now you've learned something new.
Exactly. It's like putting your brain on English mode autopilot. Plus, you're training your mind to notice gaps in your vocabulary, which helps you learn naturally. And here's a fun twist. Try to add some action words. So if you're at your desk, think, I'm writing, or I'm typing, instead of just naming objects.
Oh, that's great. And another tip, if you want to take it to the next level, start using short phrases to describe what you're seeing. For instance, instead of just notebook, you could think, my notebook is open, or I have a blue notebook. These small additions add context and get you forming simple English sentences without much pressure.
Yes, and eventually, your brain will start making these connections faster. So, if you're getting ready in the morning, you might think, I'm putting on my red shoes, or my jacket is on the chair. It really gets your mind used to processing English quickly and naturally, which is the whole point of thinking in English.
And I've seen people put sticky notes around their home with English labels for common objects, especially great if you're just starting out. You could label your mirror, bed, door, and so on. Then, every time you see the word, you reinforce that connection.
Yes, and it's kind of amazing how effective it can be. After a while, you don't even need the sticky notes because the English words just come to mind automatically. And this is especially useful if you're planning to travel or live in an English-speaking country. You'll already have those everyday words down.
Exactly. It's such a great habit for building vocabulary without sitting down to study. You're learning naturally by immersing yourself in English through your surroundings. And even better, when you're in a new place, it's a chance to pick up new words. Imagine walking into a new cafe and labeling all the new things you see in English. It's almost like a game.
Absolutely, and it can be a great confidence boost, too. You'll start to realize how much you know and how much you're picking up along the way. So if you're listening and want to give it a try, start with your bedroom or kitchen and see how many English words you can mentally label. Keep at it, and it'll feel second nature soon.
Our final tip today is something you can start right now. Anywhere, self-talk in English. Now, it might sound a bit odd at first, but self-talk is actually one of the most powerful ways to practice thinking in English.
Definitely. Self-talk is a great way to build confidence and fluency because you're essentially holding a conversation with yourself. And the best part? There's no pressure, no one judging your grammar or accent. It's just you, practicing freely in real time.
Exactly. And here's a little secret. This technique works wonders because it helps you hear yourself thinking in English. You're getting comfortable forming thoughts and then saying them aloud, which really strengthens your fluency. Let's break down a few ways you can incorporate self-talk into your daily life.
One way to start is by narrating simple actions throughout your day. So, if you're getting ready in the morning, say things like, "I'm brushing my teeth," or "I'm making coffee." Then as you get more comfortable, try expanding your sentences. "I'm brushing my teeth to start my day fresh," or "I'm making coffee because it helps me wake up."
Yes, that's a fantastic way to start. And once you get the hang of it, you can try adding a bit more detail. Let's say you're walking to work or school. Describe what you see and feel. The sun is shining. It's a bit cold today. I see people rushing to work. It's like telling a story about your own life in real time.
That's such a good idea, Sophie. It doesn't even have to be complicated. You're just vocalizing what you're doing, seeing, or thinking, which gives your brain practice translating ideas into English.
Another great way to practice self-talk is by reviewing your day or planning ahead. For example, at the end of the day, you might say, "Today was busy. I finished a big project at work. Tomorrow, I need to go grocery shopping and call my friend." It's like keeping a diary in your mind, except you're speaking it aloud.
Yes, and if you find it hard to start, think of self-talk as a conversation with a friend. You can even ask yourself questions and answer them, like, "How was my day?" "Well, it was quite busy." "What did I do?" "I worked on a project, then went for a walk." You're creating a flow, which helps your thoughts become more naturally structured in English.
Oh, I love that idea, Chris. It's like doing a little interview with yourself. And if you're working on specific grammar points or vocabulary, you can use self-talk to practice them. For example, if you're learning past tense, try narrating your day in the past. "I woke up. I ate breakfast. Then I went to work."
And here's another cool trick. Use your imagination. If you're alone, try having an imaginary conversation with someone, maybe about a hobby, like cooking or traveling. For instance, "If I could travel anywhere, I would go to Japan because I love the culture." It feels a bit like daydreaming, but in English.
That's a really fun idea, Chris. And it's amazing for practicing conversation skills, especially if you're shy or nervous speaking with others. Plus, it's like a mini role-play where you're rehearsing real-life situations you might encounter in English.
Yes, absolutely. And don't worry if you make mistakes, no one's listening. In fact, correcting your own mistakes out loud is part of the learning process. Self-talk is meant to be casual and low pressure.
And another tip is to use a mirror when you self-talk. Seeing yourself speak can actually build confidence, and it's great for practicing pronunciation and facial expressions. It's like rehearsing for when you talk to someone else.
That's such a helpful idea, Sophie. Speaking in front of a mirror is a powerful way to work on your English speaking presence. It also makes it easier to notice if you're mumbling or need to work on specific sounds.
Yes, and the best part is, self-talk is flexible. You can do it for a few minutes or as long as you like, and it can fit into any part of your day. Just start with small sentences, gradually adding more details as you build confidence.
So, if you're listening to this and feel inspired, give it a try. Start with 1 or 2 sentences about what you're doing right now. Maybe something like, "I'm listening to a podcast to improve my English." Then keep going. Soon, you'll be surprised at how easily the words start coming.
Exactly. And remember, practice is key. The more you get used to expressing your thoughts in English, the easier it will become. Self-talk is a fun, stress-free way to turn your thinking into English. Let's dive into our next tip, which is reading English out loud. This one is fantastic because it helps you improve pronunciation, rhythm, and confidence all at once. Plus, it's another way to speak English without needing a partner.
Absolutely. When you read out loud, you're engaging multiple senses at once. You're seeing, saying, and hearing English all in real time. This type of practice helps solidify vocabulary and grammar in your memory, and you'll start to get a feel for the natural flow of sentences.
Exactly, Chris. Reading aloud also lets you focus on pronunciation without having to worry about coming up with sentences yourself. You're free to concentrate on how each word sounds and how the sentences come together. For example, you could read a chapter from a book, a news article, or even a blog post. It can be anything that interests you.
That's key. The more interested you are in the material, the more you'll want to keep going. You could even pick something short, like poems, quotes, or song lyrics. If you only have a few minutes, each genre has a different style and tone, which can help you practice different ways of expressing yourself in English.
Yes, and reading different types of content can also expand your vocabulary and understanding of different contexts. For instance, reading a recipe aloud will help you learn cooking vocabulary, while reading a news article can expose you to more formal language. Each type of content brings a new set of vocabulary and expressions.
Plus, it's a great way to work on those tricky English sounds. If you're reading out loud and come across a difficult word, you can pause, look it up, and practice saying it until it feels natural. This will make you more comfortable pronouncing it in conversation later.
Great point, Chris. And for anyone looking to improve their rhythm and flow, try shadowing while you read. This technique is when you listen to a native speaker reading, then read along with them, trying to match their speed and intonation. It's like learning the melody of the language.
Shadowing is a fantastic method, especially for practicing natural intonation. If you listen to podcasts, audiobooks, or even YouTube videos, you can read the subtitles along with the speaker. Just find a pace that challenges you without making you feel overwhelmed.
Yes, and if you're reading alone, try recording yourself. It might feel awkward at first, but it's a valuable tool for hearing what you sound like. Afterward, listen back to see where you could improve your pronunciation or fluency. With practice, you'll hear yourself getting better.
And don't be too hard on yourself if it doesn't sound perfect. Even native speakers can stumble over words sometimes. The goal is to get used to hearing your voice in English. And, with time, you'll find yourself more comfortable with pronunciation and sentence flow.
Another tip is to focus on intonation, the rise and fall of your voice. English is full of intonation patterns, which can change the meaning or tone of what you're saying. Reading out loud is a safe way to experiment with these patterns and see how they feel.
That's true, and pay attention to where native speakers pause. Pauses often occur at natural breaks in sentences or after specific words. These subtle pauses give your speech a smoother, more relaxed sound, so practicing them can help you sound more fluent.
And if you're a fan of storytelling, try narrating parts of a story in different voices or tones. This adds a fun, creative twist, and it also improves your ability to express emotions in English, which is useful when speaking to others.
Yes, the more expressive you get with reading, the more engaging and fluent you'll sound when you talk to others. And, as a bonus, expressive reading helps you remember the material better because you're actively involved in the experience.
All these tips make reading out loud so powerful because it's not just about reading. It's about active engagement with the language. And remember, you don't have to do it for hours. Even a few minutes each day can lead to big improvements in your fluency.
So if you're listening and wondering how to start, grab a book or article, find a comfortable spot, and just begin. Start small, build your way up, and soon you'll notice how much more natural English feels when you read and speak.
Let's jump into another super effective strategy, immersing yourself in English media. This means using things like TV shows, movies, music, podcasts, and even social media in English as part of your daily routine. It's one of the most fun ways to learn.
Definitely, English media can be such a helpful tool because it exposes you to authentic language. Unlike traditional learning materials, TV shows, movies, And podcasts give you a chance to hear English as it's spoken naturally. You'll catch slang, expressions, and cultural references you might not see in a textbook.
Right. And it's not just about hearing the words, but about understanding the different tones, accents, and even body language that comes with them. Watching shows with subtitles can be helpful too. It allows you to see the words on screen while you hear them, which is great for connecting pronunciation to spelling.
Exactly, and as you get more comfortable, you can try turning off the subtitles and just listening. Start with something simple, like a children's show or a short YouTube video. You'll gradually get the hang of it, and your listening skills will improve. And if you're a music lover, listening to English songs is a fantastic way to practice too.
That's a great point, Chris. Music can introduce you to all kinds of vocabulary, and the repetition in songs really helps with memorizing new phrases. Plus, the rhythm and melody of songs make it easier to remember the language. You can even try singing along, that way you're practicing pronunciation too.
And for those who enjoy more in-depth conversations, try listening to English podcasts. They're usually focused on a specific topic, so you can choose ones that interest you, whether it's sports, science, or pop culture. Podcasts also let you hear how people naturally discuss topics, tell stories, or share opinions.
Yes, and unlike watching a show, you can listen to podcasts anywhere, on a walk, while you're cooking, or even just relaxing. Podcasts are great for hearing English in its conversational form. Try focusing on the expressions the hosts use, or how they transition between topics. It's like an audio guide to natural English.
And don't overlook social media. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube have tons of content in English. You can follow creators who discuss everything from travel to cooking to language learning itself. The language on social media is often more casual, so you'll pick up modern phrases and idioms that are really useful in everyday conversation.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest perks of social media is that you can interact with the content. You can leave a comment, join discussions, and even ask questions. It's a fantastic way to practice reading and writing in English while engaging with other people.
For an extra challenge, try watching interviews, documentaries, or even news channels in English. These types of content will introduce you to a more formal style of language and a wider range of vocabulary. Watching interviews, for example, is great for seeing how people from different backgrounds use language to share their perspectives.
And another tip, try to be an active watcher or listener. This means taking notes on interesting phrases or new words you hear. For example, if you hear a phrase like, to get the hang of something, write it down and look up the meaning. Later, practice using it in your own sentences.
And to make it even more interactive, try shadowing. Listen to a line or sentence, pause, and repeat it in the same tone and speed as the speaker. This helps you match the natural rhythm and intonation, which is really helpful for building fluency.
And if you want to practice thinking in English, try summarizing the media you consume. After watching a show or listening to a podcast, summarize it in English, even if it's just in a few sentences. This reinforces what you learned and helps you process information in English.
That's a brilliant idea. Summarizing forces you to think critically and find the key points in English, and you could even try recording yourself. It's a fun way to see how you're improving over time, and you might surprise yourself with how naturally you start speaking English.
To wrap up, consuming English media isn't just about passive listening or watching, it's about engaging with the language, repeating phrases, mimicking accents, and actively processing what you hear. The more you interact, the faster you'll feel comfortable with English.
So grab your favorite English media, dive in, and enjoy the learning process. The more you immerse yourself in the language, the more you'll start to see English not as something to study, but as a tool for understanding and expressing ideas.
All right, everyone. As we wrap up today, let's review 5 keywords we discussed to help you think in English.
Let's start with the word articulate. Repeat after us. Articulate. This means to express your thoughts and feelings clearly in words.
For example, with practice, he learned to articulate his ideas confidently.
Next up, we have visualize. Say it with us. Visualize. Go ahead, repeat. Visualize. This word means to create a picture in your mind.
Here's an example. Before speaking, she would visualize the conversation to feel more confident.
Our third word is surroundings. Say it with us. Surroundings. Let's hear you repeat. Surroundings. It means the environment around you, like your room or neighborhood.
So here's a sentence. He labeled objects in his surroundings to learn new vocabulary.
Our fourth word is narrate. Together now. Narrate. Try saying it. Narrate. It means to tell a story or describe something as it happens.
For example, she would narrate her day in English to practice vocabulary.
And finally, confidence. Say it with us. Confidence. One more time. Confidence. This means believing in yourself and your abilities.
Here's a sentence. With every practice, his confidence in speaking English grew.
Amazing job, everyone. Keep these words in mind, and try using them in your own sentences to make them part of your daily thoughts.
Thanks for joining us on Speak English with Sophie. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe for more tips on improving your English, and we'll catch you next time. This is the end of today's episode, but remember, learning English doesn't stop here. There's so much more to explore, so make sure to check out our other episodes to keep your English journey going. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and stay updated with our latest lessons. Keep practicing, keep growing, and we'll see you in the next episode. Happy learning!